What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Time. Whew. Anytime I need a little bit of energy, I just listen to that music and it just gets me fired up. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Jacob Cutler, the Fantasy Guy, and today I have episode number 14 for you. We are just motoring along, right? Sister Christian, well, your time has come. Motoring! Yeah, we are motoring along like Night Ranger. I hope you guys are ready. I got a banger of an episode for you guys today. We are recapping week number 3 of the NFL. It was an alright week. It wasn't week 2 or week 1, but we had some bangers of games. We also had some absolute stinkers of some games. So we're going to recap the fantasy leaders of last week, and then we are going to be returning of Stardom, Stardom, and then I'm adding get rid of them. However, let me back up here. I don't know if everybody I put on the Stardom watched the episode last week, because 3 of the 4 running backs decided to go off. So I don't know if they watched and like, oh yeah, you're going to put me on Stardom? Well, we're going to make you eat those words. So I'm feeling pretty good about my guys this week, okay? We're going to do it again, a little Stardom, Stardom, get rid of them 2.0. We're going to scrap last week, because last week was weird. Wait till we go over the fantasy leaders for the running backs. You're going to be like, what? What? So we're going to go over it. And then, of course, we have the return of my favorite segment, the injury report, letting you guys know all the latest injuries in the NFL that happened this past weekend. And there was a big one, a big guy, a big heavy hitter has been added to the injury report. So you're not going to want to miss that. Whew, but you know what? Before we even get into it, you guys know, if you like the video, we're going to keep this quick. If you like the video, just smash the like button, smash that subscribe button, and then just tap that bell notification. That way, anytime a new video drops, and they drop every Tuesday and Friday, you are the first one to consume the content, because I'm always dropping the knowledge, and you just want to pick it up and consume it to make yourself a more knowledgeable human being, because that's what we do at this channel. I make you a more knowledgeable football human being. There it is. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alrighty, let's get into this. So, first things first, we got to go over last week before we can go over this week. So, starting us off last week with our last week fantasy leaders, your QB number 2 was Justin Herbert, who put on an absolute thriller against Kansas City. And if you guys watched my season predictions and expectations, I said Kansas City may be in trouble in the division. There you go. Chargers took 1. Best thing Chiefs can do is split 1-1. Next, you got the Raiders and the Broncos, and it's not going to be easy. Chiefs are not impenetrable. They look like there are some chinks in that shield, even with that redefined offensive line. So, Justin Herbert is your QB number 2. Your QB number 1, and his road to Super Bowl 56 in LA continues. Josh Allen, who just put on a masterful performance against Washington. And I think it's kind of clear now that the game against Pittsburgh was an absolute fluke. Now we are seeing the Buffalo team that we all expected to see. So Josh Allen is your QB number 1. Your running backs, and this is like I said in the intro, this is, what? Your running back number 2 is James Robinson, who just gave me a big FU. Who must have watched the video and is like, oh, you're going to make me a sit-em? Yeah, I'll show you. And decides to go off. Does nothing the first 2 weeks, and then finally does something. Of course. Big screw you to Jake the Fantasy Guy. But James Robinson, good performance. Your running back number 2. Your running back number 1, and he's usually the number 2, is Kareem Hunt. Yeah, Kareem Hunt taking home running back number 1 honors, and an absolute just great performance. Just running all over the field, juking, breaking tackles. He could not be stopped. So Kareem Hunt is your running back number 1. Your wide receivers. Now, your wide receiver number 1 is an interesting character, but let's get to wide receiver 3 and 2 first. Your wide receiver number 3 is Davante Adams, who, for whatever reason, was not double covered at the end of that game against the Niners, allowing the Packers to score the game-winning field goal, thus ending an absolute thriller on a Sunday night there in Santa Clara. But Davante Adams was unstoppable against the Niners, who are cornerless right now, who are absolutely cornerless. And Davante Adams took full advantage of it. So, Davante Adams, your wide receiver number 3. Your wide receiver number 2 is my guy I've told you guys. And if you got him, congratulations. Is Cooper Kupp. The man finally has a quarterback. Expect this as long as he stays healthy. He is going to ball out for the season. I guarantee it. I'm putting a stamp on it. Cooper Kupp is the man in fantasy. Just if you got him, just watch. Your wide receiver number 1. And this one is like a what? Who? Well, not really a who, but what? Is Mike Williams. Yes, Mike Williams is your wide receiver number 1. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Even if you might even be rostered in your league. He might even still be available for you to pick up right now. But Mike Williams having an outstanding week against the Chiefs as your wide receiver number 1. Your tight ends. Moving on to the big boys. Your tight end number 2, and like I said, this game had a lot of fantasy people. This was a big fantasy game. Your tight end number 2 was Travis Kelce. I know, big shocker, big shocker. The tight ends, it was kind of a slow tight end. It was kind of a slow tight end week this week. But Travis Kelce, your tight end number 2, and a high fantasy point scoring game in that Kansas City Chiefs and Charger game. I mean, it was like, you want fantasy points, you want fantasy points, you want fantasy points, everybody wants fantasy points, and everybody gets fantasy points. It was like Oprah was out there, just giving free fantasy points away to everybody. Jeez, your tight end number 1. And I'll give you guys a couple minutes to look this guy up. Was Tyler Conklin. Who? Tyler Conklin? Who? Yeah, Tyler Conklin from Minnesota. Yes, he is up there. I know you don't know who he is. I'll give you a sec to look him up on Wikipedia. Hang on, go ahead. Okay, that was a sec. You should have looked him up already. Tyler Conklin is your tight end number 1, and he is not rostered in a lot of leagues. He may play an impact role now that Irv Smith Jr. is out for the season. So who knows? Kirk is off to a really good start this season. But Tyler Conklin is your tight end number 1. Your flexes. Your flex number 2 was Emmanuel Sanders, who just went off. Was stealing all of Stephon Diggs' touchdowns. Thanks, Emmanuel. Thanks. Jeez Louise. But Emmanuel Sanders going off against the Washington football team's defense, who's ranked 31 in the league now. They are struggling. So Emmanuel Sanders, your flex number 2. Your flex number 1. And he is a flex. Was your running back number 1. Kareem Hunt. Yeah, Kareem Hunt is your flex number 1 because he's normally not the number 1 running back. Nick Chubb is. So I don't think most people aren't really starting him in the starting running back role. So your flex number 1, it was Kareem Hunt. Moving on to the defenses. Your defense number 2 was the New Orleans Saints in a bounce-back game that they had to have against the New England Patriots. The defense came to play. And bounced back. I told you, that's a nasty defense. That is a nasty defense there in New Orleans when they're on their game. Your defense number 1 was the Arizona Cardinals, who took care of business against the abysmal Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, holy moly. I know it's going to take some time for everything to gel there, but it looks bad. It doesn't look good right now. They did get the offense kind of going last week against Arizona, so we'll see what happens Thursday against the Bengals. I think the Bengals are going to easily handle that game, though, but we'll see. The offense could potentially get going against the Bengals, and that could start their season, but Jacksonville is not looking too good right now at the start of the season. Moving on to your kickers. Your kickers. We have your kicker number 2 was the man who now has 2 60-yard field goals. Fact check me. I dare you. But he has 2 60-yard field goals against the same team. Yes, I'm talking about the GOAT himself, Justin Tucker. Yeah, easily the best kicker of all time. I mean, come on. Let's just call a spade a spade. Justin Tucker, easily the best kicker of all time. I mean, let's What a kick. Kudos to you. A 66-yard game-winning field goal, longest field goal in NFL history, and coming in at your kicker number 2. Your kicker number 1, and most people, if you need a kicker, this man most likely is available in your league, is Chase McLaughlin. Yes, Chase McLaughlin, who is the journeyman kicker now, is now your kicker number 1. He's on Cleveland. If you need a kicker, there you go. Looks reliable, looks good, looks decent. Your kicker number 1, Chase McLaughlin. And we have some honorable mentions because ESPN has these guys rated way above what Yahoo has these guys rated. So your honorable mentions are, 1 is Najee Harris, who had a really good game against the Bengals. But the Steelers themselves are fading and fading fast. Najee Harris, only good thing about that team. Your honorable mention number 2 is Mike Gesicki, and of course I had this guy on Stidham's last week. He had a decent game, but in terms of tight ends though, he had one of the better tight end games. So Mike Gesicki is another honorable mention, and then 2 defenses are the Denver Broncos, who just shut out the New York Jets, and then you have the Cleveland Browns, who feasted, who went to lunch on Justin Fields and absolutely ate him up in his first start. Just embarrassing. Not a first start that you definitely want to remember. So the Cleveland Browns, honorable mention. And that's all I got for you guys in last week's Fantasy Leaders. Alrighty, we are going to try this again. So without further ado, I bring you the 2.0 version of Stardom, Sit 'em, and Get Rid of 'em. Alrighty, let's get into this. So we are going to start off with our QBs. So basically how this works, before we even get into it, is I got 4 QBs, 4 running backs, 4 wide receivers, and 4 tight ends for you in the Stardom, Sit 'em, and Get Rid of 'em categories. So we are going to try this again. It's a 2.0 version. Let's get into this. Your quarterbacks. Your quarterback number 4 this week is Ryan Tannehill against the New York Jets. Yes, he's taking on the Jets that have only scored 6 points and have allowed a gajillion points in the last 2 weeks. So I think Ryan Tannehill is a pretty safe bet this week to go off and feast against the New York Jets. Your QB number 3, and is the man I'm believing in more and more every single week, and will be in the MVP conversation if he handles business on Monday night. Yes, that is Derek Carr. Derek Carr is on fire right now, and he was only rostered, I think, in 20% last week. I think he's rostered in over 50% of leagues now. So there is a massive draw to Derek Carr right now, and he is playing well. So if you need a quarterback, if your quarterbacks have been struggling, DC is the man for you. He's taking on the Chargers. Tough defense, but I think he still scores a lot of fantasy points this week. Your quarterback number 2. And okay, fine, he was on my sit-ems last week. I know I didn't believe in him, and that was a mistake. He proved me wrong. Is Taylor Heinicke. Yes, Taylor Heinicke is on fire. He's scored 20 points in every game he's been in. You need to pick him up. He's only rostered in a very small, I think a decent amount, but very small right now. So Taylor Heinicke needs to be on your team if you need a quarterback, because he is balling out. 3 20-point games, or 2 20-point games, and I think 1 19-point game, something very close to 20 points. Taylor Heinicke is balling out, and he's playing Atlanta, there is nothing exciting about that team. Nothing. Your quarterback number 1, and no bias here, is Joe Burrow. Yes, Joey B is playing well. He had 1 bad game against Chicago and then did what franchise quarterbacks do, which is bounce back with 3 touchdowns against the Steelers, whose defense is supposed to be top 5 in the league. So, Joey B looks good, and he's taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars this week, who are abysmal, who look terrible, who aren't even going to look any better in Cincinnati, I don't think. So, Joey B, your QB number 1. Moving on to your running backs. Your running back number 4 is, and I thought he was fading. But he heard the talk. He was like, who? Tony? Tony's coming to take my job, that backup? No. No, he ain't. Ezekiel Elliott is your running back number 4. He balled out against Philadelphia. He showed that he is the number 1 back for that team, and he is a top 10 back in this league. He was running tough through the tackles, tough on the outside. So Zeke is your running back number 4. Your running back number 3 is Melvin Gordon. Yes, Melvin Gordon is having a good season right now. He's having a solid season for a running back. So, taking on the Baltimore Ravens, who have allowed, I think, 20-plus points or an average of 20 points to running backs. So if you have either Melvin Gordon or Javonte Williams, probably a safe start against the Baltimore Ravens, especially when they're going to be at home in Denver, Mile High. That altitude will play an effect against the Ravens. So, Melvin Gordon is your running back number 3. Your running back number 2, I have David Montgomery. I know, stay with me here. He's versus Detroit, but I think that game has a chance for a high fantasy game for the running backs. The defense of the Chicago Bears will be tough for Detroit. Now, the Detroit defense for the Chicago Bears, we'll see. I mean, if that line can get that run defense going, that's where I think the David Montgomery outburst this week comes from. Where I think that line of the Bears tries to show that they can actually protect the quarterback and the running back, trying to have a bounce back game against Detroit. So I think David Montgomery has an outburst this week that he did have in week 1. So, David Montgomery, your running back number 2. Your running back number 1, and this may shock people, but he was my sleeper, and it's because a certain somebody is gone. I got Chuba Hubbard against Dallas. Yes, Chuba Hubbard from the Panthers against Dallas, sliding into that starting role now that Christian McCaffrey is injured, out with an injury. So, Chuba Hubbard sliding in to that role against Dallas. Dallas defense looks tough. However, I think the Carolina Panthers are up to the task. They looked okay against the Texans, but I think this is the game where Carolina shows that they are a real team. So, Chuba Hubbard, your running back number 1. Your wide receivers. Moving on to the wide receivers. Your wide receiver number 4 is DJ Moore. Yes, I know there's a lot of Carolina Panthers players on here, but DJ Moore, I think, has a great game against Dallas. He will probably go up against Diggs, so that'll be an interesting matchup, which may open the door for Robbie Anderson. So my Robbie Anderson owners, just be on the lookout for that, because Diggs is going to play that number 1 receiver. It just depends on if he's going to follow him on the field or if he's going to stay in that one spot. We shall see. But DJ Moore is my wide receiver number 4. He is playing well right now. He is playing well, and he looks like Sam's favorite target. Your wide receiver number 3 is Julio Jones. Yes, he's taking on the Jets. A.J. Brown is injured. This is the game where Julio goes bananas. Right? This is the game where Julio goes bonkers. So, Julio Jones, your wide receiver number 3. Your wide receiver number 2. And he made his return, and he looked good. And he's only going to go up from here. I'm telling you, is Odell Beckham Jr. My Odell Beckham Jr. owners, I tried to tell you, hang on to him. Just hang on to him. He's coming. He's coming for the start. Odell Beckham Jr. easily needs to be in that starting lineup now that he's healthy. He looked good last week. He looked good in his return. Your wide receiver number 1, and the man is on fire. This is no coincidence, is Jamar Chase. Yeah, the Bengals' first-round draft pick wide receiver is on fire. He is on fire. Not 1, but 2 touchdowns last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. 4 touchdowns in the first 3 games. He looks as advertised. I was a little bit worried. I'll be honest. I was a little bit worried in preseason when he was dropping the ball, these easy passes. But wow, has he turned it around, and does he look every bit worth that pick that we picked him at? So, Jamar Chase, I have as your wide receiver number 1. Not available in a lot of leagues. So, if you don't got him, I don't think you're going to get him. But if you got him, start him, because he's on a roll, and he's going to continue against Jacksonville. Who's going to stop him? They just traded their corner to the Panthers. Right? C.J. Henderson, gone for Dan Arnold. For Dan Arnold? For the tight end? I don't know what Jacksonville's doing. I don't know what Urban Meyer's doing. They just gave a cornerback to the Panthers. Now who's going to cover Jamar? So Jamar, watch out Thursday night. He's going to put on display. Just watch out. Jamar Chase, your wide receiver number 1. Moving on to the tight ends, the big boys. Your tight end number 4. And yes, another guy, I had him on Siddums last week. We got Mike Gesicki. Let's give it to him. Let's give him some support. Jacoby Brissett looks like he can throw the ball to receivers. He looks like a viable quarterback. So we're going to go Mike Gesicki at your tight end number 4. Your tight end number 3. And he only had a bad week last week because he got injured, because he got absolutely plastered. He got absolutely destroyed on that play, and his ribs just crumbled. Is Rob Gronkowski. I think Rob, not just Tom, I think Rob dominates in his return to New England. I think Tom tries to find him the ball every which way he can. I honestly think Tom is going to try and score every single touchdown with Gronk. Just to rub it in Bill's face, just to rub it in New England's face, because that's what Tom does. That's what Tom's like to do, and that's just Tom's ego and attitude. So I think Gronk has a massive game. Adam Scheffler reported that he will be healthy. So Gronk, massive game in New England. Your tight end number 2, I got Logan Thomas. We got Taylor Heineke as your QB number 2. We're going to have Logan Thomas as your tight end number 2. So Logan Thomas, who scored a touchdown last week, is always guaranteed for that 9 to 10 point game. Could also have an upwards of a bigger game, but 9 to 10 points is where Logan Thomas sits. Definitely worth the start if you need someone for the tight end position. The tight ends this year aren't going off like they used to, right? We're not seeing a lot of tight end points being scored. So Logan Thomas will definitely get you those points that you need. He'll definitely hit those projection points that he's projected at. Your tight end number 1 is, and this one may be a little bit of a weird one, but is Tyler Higbee from the Rams, who got going last week. I think not only does Cooper Kupp help this team, but Tyler Higbee helps Matt Stafford. So Tyler Higbee, I think, goes off against Arizona. Arizona has decent corners, right? But how are they going to do covering the tight end? I think the coverage of Cooper Kupp and of Robert Woods, I think, will open up the floor for Tyler Higbee. So if you have Tyler Higbee, I think he's definitely worth the start this week. And that's all I got for you on the Stardom. Next up, we got the Siddums. And these guys just need to plop a spot on your bench and stay there for a while. Let's go over this. Your QB number 4 is Trevor Lawrence. Yes, Trevor Lawrence needs to plop a squat on the bench. He is struggling. Trevor Lawrence, he'll figure it out. He'll figure it out later on as the season goes. We're still super early into the season. It is week 3, or it is week 4 now. But it was week 3 last week, so we're still super early into the season. So he still has time. He has plenty of time to develop. He will grow, he will get better. I'm not really questioning that. But against the Bengals and that defense that seems to be playing a lot better this year, plop him on the bench. Your QB number 3, and the only reason I say this is because this defense was in my honorable mentions. They feasted last week. Is Kirk Cousins. I have Kirk Cousins as a sit down this week, just because let me frame this. Kirk is playing outstanding. He has had 3 outstanding games, and if you've had the pleasure of having Kirk and starting him, kudos to you, because you have scored a lot of points. But Kirk is always known to have one game that is an absolute stinker, where he throws, 4 picks, gets sacked a bunch of times, fumbles the ball a bunch. Kirk is known to do that. I think that this is that game against Cleveland, and that defense that, again, is nasty. That defense gets after the quarterback. Myles Garrett looked every bit of that first-round pick, right? He looked every bit like a first-round pick. So I think this is the game where Kirk kind of stinks it up a little bit. So just be on the lookout for that. Your QB number 2 is Ben Roethlisberger, who is struggling, who is not the Big Ben of old, who I don't even think will get the Big Ben of old. Ben Roethlisberger is struggling right now. So if he is your option at quarterback, you need to look elsewhere for a quarterback option, because I don't know if Ben's going to get it together. Again, still early, long season, but he is struggling right now. So sit him down until he can figure it out. Your QB number 1 is, and it's because a lot of people believed in this guy, is Mac Jones. Yes, Mac Jones needs to sit on the bench. He is not doing anything near that would garner a start, right, in your league. I hope you're not starting Mac Jones. So Mac Jones is the last sit-em for the QBs. He's taking on Tampa Bay. I think that defense wants to help out Tom and wants to make Tom look good. So I think they might go to work against Mac Jones. Just a theory, but I think Mac Jones is in for a hell of a game on Sunday against Tampa Bay. Your running back number 4 is Sony Michel. Even with Darnell Henderson out, Sony Michel is doing nothing. That's the one thing that they need to figure out on the Rams in order to have the season that they want. They need to establish a run game. They have no run game right now. Sony Michel is nothing to start. That's what I would say. Sony Michel is nothing that I would want to be like, oh, let me start him over this person. Sony Michel needs to be plopped on the bench. My running back number 3 is Chase Edmonds. I guess James Conner has woken up, and I guess they're going to give him the ball for the touchdown. And I guess he can actually score touchdowns now. So Chase Edmonds, I think, is the big hitter on that. And I think Chase Edmonds, plop him on the bench. Your number 2 is Damian Harris. You're going to see a lot of New England players on this list. I'm telling you right now. Damian Harris from New England. I think they're in for a rough game. The Tampa Bay defense is not as solid as everyone thought they would be. But I think Damian Harris has a rough game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And your running back number 1 is Taysom Williams. I had him in the Stardom last week. This week he's taking on Denver in Mile High. That Denver defense is humming right now. They normally Denver and Vic Fangio has struggled in September. They seem to have figured all that out. They are on fire right now. Excuse me. The Denver defense, I think, handles Taysom Williams, and I think goes to work against the Baltimore Ravens. Next up, we have your wide receivers. So, your wide receiver number 4, again, another New England Patriot, is Jacoby Myers, who most people don't even know who this guy is. Most people just pick this guy up because they needed somebody at the very end of their draft. But Jacoby Myers, if you've been starting him or you thought about starting him, don't. Just leave him on the bench. Find somebody else to start. Your wide receiver number 3 is Jalen Reagor. I have this guy myself, and he has done nothing but let me down. So he needs to stay on your bench. Possible get rid of him. Possible. We'll see what happens in Kansas City, but Jalen Reagor, bench him. Doesn't need to be in there. Your wide receiver number 2 is Chase Claypool. I was going to say Chasepool. Chase Claypool. He looks like, who knows with the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers? Who knows what's going to happen with them? They're taking on Green Bay. Green Bay's defense looked a little bit better in these last 2 games. They didn't look great, but it looked a little bit better in these last 2 games. So Chase Claypool, I think you just sit him on the bench. See if you have anybody else there in your lineup who can take his spot. In your wide receiver number 1, the man who if he would have caught these freaking 3 touchdowns, I would have looked real nice in my wide receivers. But no, this dude looks like the freaking dopiest of the dopes, dropping 3 wide open touchdowns. The ball hit him in his hands. And he dropped him. I'm talking to you, Marquise Hollywood Brown. Hey, man, Mr. Hollywood. Catch the ball, bro. Catch the ball. Excuse my language. But, dude, the ball hit you in the hands 3 times for 3 touchdowns. Hollywood. Get out of here. Marquise Brown, your wide receiver number 1. Frickin' flake. Tell him to put some frickin' glue on his hands and catch the ball, Mr. Hollywood. All right, moving on to your tight ends. We got your tight end number 4. We got Garrett Everett from the Seattle Seahawks. I know a lot of you don't even know who that is, but he's rostered in a good amount of leagues. Garrett Everett against that Niner defense. While they did struggle against the Packers receivers, I think the Niners linebackers are going to be able to handle the tight ends with ease, especially Fred Warner. I think Fred will be able to handle the tight end coverage with ease. So, Garrett Everett on the bench. Your tight end number 3, we have Jack Doyle. Now, Jack was a good tight end when he had Andrew Luck. Now, when you have these unbalanced quarterbacks and everything like that, you can't trust him. He's up one week, down the next week, up one week, down the next week. You can't have that. You need something consistent. So Jack Doyle, flop on the bench. And your second tight end is Cole Kmet. I know who? Cole Kmet. Yes, tight end for the Bears. Also rostered in a lot of people's leagues. He's been doing nothing. Doesn't look like he's going to be doing anything anytime soon. Plop him on the bench. Possible drop there. And your tight end number 1 is, and the guy I was so high on. Look at this. Look, he hasn't even played that much because I can't even find a picture of him in his uniform. I can only find a picture of him in his practice uniform. So it goes to show that he's done nada, zilch, nothing for anybody. And he's rostered in an insane amount of leagues. So if he doesn't do anything this week, we're going to add him to the get rid of him. But Jared Cook for the Los Angeles Chargers has done nothing for anybody this year. So if you got Jared Cook, find other options. And again, if he has a crappy week, we're dropping him. So that is it for the sit-ems. And lastly, we got get rid of them. So with this, we only have I only got quarterbacks for you and wide receivers right now. I got 4 quarterbacks, 2 wide receivers. Let's get into this. Get rid of them. Number 4 in the quarterbacks is Mr. I like him, but for fantasy, he needs to go. Jimmy G. Jimmy G is not a good fantasy quarterback. He's a decent quarterback in real life, not a good fantasy quarterback, especially to start off this season. So, Jimmy G, get rid of him if you got him. Your QB number 3 is, and the man I thought would be good, but I guess not, is Carson Wentz. Yes, you're get rid of him, QB number 3. Carson Wentz has done basically nothing this entire season. So if you got him, get rid of him. You find somebody else. There's plenty of other options out there. Your QB number 2 is the man that's only scored 6 points in 2 weeks. Yes, Zach Wilson. If you are some person who thought that he was going to be great or whatever, stop starting him, get him off your team. Immediately disconnect yourself from Zach Wilson. Okay? That's my advice to you. Your QB number 1 is Matty Ice Baby, because that's all he is. He's just ice right now. He's cold as hell. Matt Ryan, get him off your team. He's playing like garbage. And watch, Washington's going to turn it around. Watch Washington's defense figure it out against Matt Ryan. So, Matt Ryan, if he is your starting quarterback, you need help. So, Matt Ryan, get rid of him. All right, get rid of him. For the wide receivers, we only have 2. Your wide receiver number 2 is Devontae Parker. If you still have Devontae Parker on your team for some unknown reason from the Miami Dolphins, get rid of him. Not worth any of whatever he's going to give you. Your wide receiver number 1, and this one's big, is Kenny Golladay. Get him off your team. He looks like he can't even do anything. He's supposed to be the star. He's supposed to be the number 1 guy in New York. He's supposed to be Danny Dimes' security blanket. But he has done nothing to start the season. Maybe later on in the season, but he has done nothing to start the season. So either bench him, but I'm telling you to get rid of him. And that's all I got for you on Stardom, Sit 'em, and get rid of him. And the last thing that we got to talk about today is my favorite segment, and I hope you guys enjoy it too, because I think it is the most informative, and it's the one that's got to keep you guys on the toes the most. And let me tell you, that list is piling up. So let's get into it. It is the injury report. Alrighty, we have quite a list developing. We have 14 players added to the injury report this week. Yes, the injuries are stacking up. So let's get into this. Number one, we got T. Higgins dealing with a shoulder injury, and he's considered day to day. So if you have T. Higgins dealing with a shoulder injury, day to day. So he very well, he may play in Thursday, but chances are he'll sit Thursday and then he'll play next Sunday. But T. Higgins dealing with a shoulder injury, day to day. Next up, we got Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's considered week to week with a knee injury. But with that being said, you have Justin Fields, who's dealing with a hand injury, and Matt Nagy has said he's not guaranteed to start on Sunday. Now, we know Matt Nagy says a lot of things, but Andy Dalton is dealing with a knee injury, considered week to week, and then you have Justin Fields, who's dealing with a hand injury, I guess day to day, not guaranteed to start, but he is dealing with an injury nonetheless. Next up, we got Michael Gallup from the Dallas Cowboys, and he is a good fantasy option. So if you have Michael Gallup, he was placed on short-term IR with that calf injury. He probably will come back around week 6, week 7, but he was placed on short-term IR with the calf injury, Michael Gallup. Next up, we got KJ Hamler from the Denver Broncos, who unfortunately tore his ACL and is out for the season. The Denver Broncos are taking shots left and right at wide receiver, and that's what happens. That's what happened last year. All the receivers started going down to injuries. So hopefully Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, they can stay healthy. They can still bust out the season, still make it a good season for the Denver Broncos. But KJ Hamler is gone, done for the season. Torn ACL. Next up, we have Josh Jacobs, who remains out, remains sidelined with that toe injury and is considered day-to-day. So we'll see. I mean, it's nice that the Raiders play late. What I mean is the Monday game, so they're playing later on in the week. It gives them that extra day to kind of rest and heal. We shall see, but right now he's considered day-to-day with that toe injury. Next up, I think I said Darnell Henderson, but it's Darrell Henderson. Earlier, but it's Darrell Henderson of the Rams. He was progressing through the rib injury, and Sean McVay, I almost forgot his name. Sean McVay is hopeful that he plays Sunday. They need him. They need him because he is basically their running game. So Darrell Henderson progressing through his rib injury, and is hopeful to play on Sunday. I feel like that all kind of rhymes. Next up, we have James White. James White for the New England Patriots is out indefinitely with a hip injury. He injured his hip on Sunday, so he will be out indefinitely. If you have him, you definitely need to look at other options because he will not be there for the next couple weeks. Next up, we have Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton, both from the New York Giants. Both left the game. Both are dealing with a hamstring injury. So they both left the game. They both are dealing with a hamstring injury, and both of them are considered day to day. I don't know what else could go wrong for the New York Giants, but if these guys are going to be out on Sunday, it's going to be a rough game for Danny Dimes. A rough game. I don't know who's going to throw the ball to because we know Kenny Golladay ain't producing for them. So Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard, both day-to-day with a hamstring injury. Next up, we have Jamison Crowder, who remains sidelined with a groin injury. And the Jets need this man. The Jets need somebody. They need somebody who can help score points. I mean, Corey Davis was there, and then I don't know what happened. So, oh man, Jamison Crowder out for the Jets, not helping anybody there. So if you have Jamison Crowder, considered week to week with a groin injury. So just manage that. Next up, we have the man that is turning in to Tom's favorite target, and he always loves the fast, small running backs, is Giovanni Bernard. Gio is considered day-to-day with an MCL sprain. that's kind of a big injury. And, if he gets hit again, he could tear it, and then he's done for the season. So if you have Gio, Gio is considered day-to-day with an MCL sprain. You got to watch out for that. Next up, we have A.J. Brown, who's done really nothing this year, but he got injured, considered week-to-week now with a hamstring injury. Great. That's where Julio is going to need to step up into that number one role, and obviously it's Julio. He's definitely a number one. So I think this is where Julio gets the benefit of the doubt here and the benefit of the shine and the benefit of A.J. Brown's injury. So A.J. Brown considered week to week with a hamstring injury. And the last injury we have, and it's the big one, CMC, wild calf, Christian McCaffrey back on the injury report after suffering a devastating hamstring injury last season that took him out basically the whole season. And it looks like he may have reneged it again. It looks like he may have re-injured it, re-irritated it. Does not look good. He's considered week to week right now. Matt Rule is not going to put him on IR. So for my CMC owners, Matt Rule is putting him on IR, so he's doing you a favor. He is somewhat taking up a roster spot, but then at the same time, he could come back and you could use him right away, right? So he is not going on IR, so that's a decent sign. But this could be like the thing last year, right? Where it's basically he wasn't going on IR, they thought he was going to come back, and then boom, he ended up on IR, and then that was the end of the season. So Christian McCaffrey, week to week, hamstring injury. Hopefully it's nothing serious. He's not going on IR, like I say. But Christian McCaffrey, big injury, big injury. And that is all I got for you on today's injury report. Alrighty, and that is all I have for you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. I hope you guys enjoyed Stardom, Sit 'em, and Get Rid of 'em, because that is the new segment that we are going to be doing every Tuesday. And let's hope that my players on the Sit 'em don't watch this and then decide to just make me eat my words, right? We want what I say to happen, right? That's what we're about here. We're about making what I say into a reality. But if it happens, oh well. I give it my best shot. I give it my best educated guess, because that's all we're doing here. It's all we can do here is make educated guesses, and I can give you guys my most solid and sound opinions and perspectives and predictions. All I want, but at the end of the day, it's up to these guys and these guys alone to make all this stuff happen. So we shall see what happens, but that is what we're going to bring to you every Tuesday. Stardom, Sit 'em, and Get Rid of 'em. You can follow along on the Google Sheets. Yes, that'll be linked down in this video. The Google Sheets where you can see the projected leaders, right? Last week's and then this week's, myself, Yahoo, and ESPN, right? We're not doing that like I used to do in the other videos, but I still am updating that Google Sheet, so you can follow along with that one. There is a Stardom, Sit 'em, and Get Rid of 'em Google Sheets, so you can follow along there in case you just want to see for yourself all the information that I have for you guys. So those links will be down in the description, right? And then you can also follow us on Twitter at FantasyTime2021. You can follow my Facebook page at the Fantasy Guy 2021, and then obviously YouTube, right, at Fantasy Time 2021, right? If you like this video, please smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and then just tap on that bell notification. That way, anytime a new video drops, and they drop every Tuesday and Friday, you are the first one to consume the content. You are the first one to get the knowledge, because that's what I'm doing. I'm always dropping the knowledge, and it's on you to pick it up and consume the knowledge, because that's what we're about here. We are about making you a better football human being, right? That's what we want to do here at Fantasy Time. Make you a better fantasy player and make you a better fantasy football a better football knowledgeable human being is what I should say. So if you like the video, please smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and then tap that bell notification, so that way anytime a new episode drops, you are updated. Whew! But you guys know what I like to say. This has been Fantasy Time. I am your host, Jacob Cutler, and until next time, Jacob Cutler is out. You're still here? What are you still doing here? It's over. The show is over. The show is over. Go check out some other videos on the channel. Go. Go. Well, I guess while you're here, make sure you like, follow, subscribe. But go. The show's over. The show's over.